Hi, this is Ari Kopel and Serena, your hosts of Shattering the Matrix. Then today we have a very special guest again, and her name is Rev Dr. Linn Strouse, and she happens to be a very good friend of mine as well. And Lynn has been a seeker of the truth and in personal relationship with God since she was 5 years old, very similar to me as well. Fortunately for her, through the diverse spiritual backgrounds in her family, she was able to identify and explore the threads of truth that can be found within multiple spiritual paths. This tapestry of truth that she has been called to weave has pretty much taken her into the inner worlds of Christianity, Judaism, Kabbahlism, Gnosticism, Shamanism, the divine feminine, Sufism, Masonry, and the Essenes. Additionally, this calling has taken her to sacred sites throughout the United States, Egypt, Israel, England, Italy, Greece, France, Peru, Mexico, and even Hawaii. As a result of this eclectic journey, Lynn identifies herself to be a Gnostic Essene who focuses on the esoteric, mystical aspects of the soul and its growth. Consequently, due to Lynn's experiences and education that she has received from her soul's journey, she has been called to be a spiritual teacher of esoteric wisdom, a speaker, a soul coach / engineer, a spiritual warrior and watchman, an energy transformer, and a sacred journey's guide. Lynn understands her mission at this point to be to assist others as souls to awaken to their divine essence, attain consciousness of their higher self and the divine spirit, and to assist in helping them to attain their soul's mission. Her primary tools are esoteric wisdom texts, ceremony, energy healing and education, stress reduction techniques and technology, and her own inner guidance that she receives through claircognizance, clairaudience, and clairvoyance. Lynn has just recently received her PhD in metaphysics and is currently in the process of creating an electronic ecclesiastical ministry under the name of the Universal Light the Universal Light and Life Alliance, which is also known as TULA, which is T like Tom, U-L-L-A. She also has a doctorate of divinity and is certified as a registered nurse, a Reiki master, a biofeedback specialist, a wellness coach, and a holistic lifestyle practitioner. Additionally, she has also been initiated and trained as a ceremonial leader through the use of fire and dance. Wow, that's a mouthful. Lynn, welcome.
Thank you.
Wow, you're so accomplished. Very well, thank you. I'm honored for you to be here as well. You have so much to offer and so much to teach others, and it was obviously a matter of time to getting you on the show. So we're going to be talking about empowerment, right? We're going to be talking about, because obviously there are situations on planet Earth that are not necessarily what we call in divine order, although many people probably beg to differ. But my stance with that, and Serena's as well, is that, hey, just take a look around, be honest with ourselves, and let's really say to ourselves, is this really in divine order or not? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm absolutely in agreement with you, and actually it's one of my biggest frustrations. And you and I have had conversations about this, actually, in terms of a lot of folks out there saying, oh, no, everything's perfect, like you've said, and in divine order, and you just want to cross your eyes and look at them and say, what world are you living on at this moment?
Yeah.
And so, it's absolutely important that we recognize not only where the planet is at this point, but also humanity and, individuals as soul. When you talk about empowerment, to me, that means empowering each individual at the soul level. And the challenge really is, how do we go about doing that? How do we go about doing it for ourselves even?
That's right.
And that's where all this disconnect really occurs, because we have a lot of philosophies out there, blowing around, and various spiritual paths, but none of them, I think, are specific enough to help a soul figure out where it's at, what's going on with it, and how to get from A to B,
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think this disconnect is? I mean, why are so many people, and I'm not talking about the masses, because I don't I don't know that we can even, I don't know. It's just my opinion. There's a lot of them that we don't even know if they're even human. We don't know, okay?
Yeah.
But the ones that can make a difference, I'm thinking, those are my focus right now. The ones that can make a difference. The ones that are ensouled. The ones that, that hopefully have a better chance of getting it, right? Many of us that are within that description I just gave are really, we've been duped also. We've also been compromised in many ways with just different ideologies and ways of looking at things, that a lot of it makes us complacent to the realities that are going on in the world. And then that just disempowers us. What do you feel that what do you feel that we need to do to get ourselves, off our rockers there, off our rocking chairs or couches or our meditation, things, and just actually get more active and get more involved to affect change?
Well, first of all, I do think we have to recognize that we have been usurped in many ways. And actually, a couple of your recent shows have talked about that at great length. It's first recognizing that we are in a realm in which we are continuously interfered with. And that interference prevents us from really and truly activating ourselves as divine beings. And so it's taking that stance that you're going to draw that line in the sand and that you're not going to allow anything to shortchange you. And it all boils down to, Ari, you and I have talked about this many times, the personal responsibility and doing your part in your own way, which you and Serena are doing an incredible job of. And unfortunately, at this point, the way I see it, we can only influence one person at a time.
Yeah.
And we influence by being sure of who we are and why we're here and what we're to be doing. And to no longer accept excuses from any direction. We've gotten into such a politically correct arena that we don't speak up. I know I'm very guilty of this. And I recently have kicked myself in the rear end about that and have said no more. I'm just not going to allow it, whether I'm talking to a New Age person, and that's a broad category, but a New Age person who, thinks they're living in the fifth dimension and everything is perfect, or they can bump in and out and everything's in alignment and going well. Or I'm talking with someone who stands in a pulpit. They all have responsibilities that they aren't fulfilling, and because there's many lost souls out there. And what I mean by that is those who do not recognize who they are, why they're here, what they're to be doing. And so, instead of looking at where all the faults are, for instance, like with the pulpit, I was having this conversation with my father this weekend. I said, I don't go to a traditional church, but I said, I know what goes on in them. And I know that they're preaching every Sunday morning, letting the individuals know that they're sinners.
Yeah.
And proceeding to tell them that, Christ saved them, and yes, he did, but they have 1/4 of the story of that,
Right.
And all the while, they're ignoring the monster in the closet, which is evil in general, that is succeeding on all levels, whether you talk from a governmental perspective, a cultural perspective, a financial perspective, it's everywhere, as you know. And so they have to start calling it for what it is. And
wow, touche.
They're responsible for those souls, you guys, and it's maddening to me, because most people who are sitting in those pews, in those churches, in those synagogues, in those temples, they're there because they're seeking the truth.
Yep.
They have love in their heart, and they want a personal relationship with God, Christ, whomever their spiritual master is.
Yeah.
And they already know what their deficiencies are as a person. And so how can they be, the question in my mind is, how can they be activated to stand for what is pure and what is right in this world?
Right.
And I think it really begins with doing what you guys are doing and, my work. And, okay, let's talk about, what do you know about yourself as a soul, as spirit? Why are you here? And when you have, I'm still still shocked to this day when you ask people those questions, how many people have never even asked themselves that question.
Oh, yeah.
Lynn, can you repeat those questions that people should be asking themselves, please?
Yes. Who am I? At the soul level, why am I here? And what is it I'm to be doing? How do I serve God in this body, in this space at this point in time? What is my service? Mm-hmm. And it's not collecting material things and having the nicest house on the block or the flashiest car or the smartest kids. It's about how do you fulfill that plan, the divine plan. And for me, the divine plan is God wants us to all be in close personal relationship with Him and growing and evolving our souls to be co-creators in His creation. Mm-hmm. And we all have a different piece of that. We all have a different way of approaching that, and we're all growing towards that, in this realm of existence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting. Now, let me ask you, what do you, because I know you have some profound experiences doing your travels, doing your, when you went to Egypt, when you went to, I think it was Stonehenge, was it? Because I'm trying to get to what has shaped you into who you are today, and that knowing that you have. To me, that's really important, because, a lot of people that might be listening to this, they want to know, okay, well, how do I get started?
Well, I think it, goes back to that 5 years old scenario, what my earliest memory is two things. First of all, I was looking for God. And I was making my family take me to church. My mother was Lutheran. My dad was Pentecostal. All my cousins were Catholic. My grandmother was a Pentecostal revival preacher who spoke in tongues. And everywhere I, had them take me in terms of church, I was looking for God. Mm-hmm. And so I have constantly been looking for Him as early as then, and, going into those places and realizing after one event after another that, my assessment was He wasn't there. So I had been looking for a long, long time to answer that question for myself. Mm-hmm. The other thing that at that same age, I heard my mother and my aunt having a conversation about, in this generation's time frame, that many believed, even at that time, that this was the end times, the end of the world. Yeah. And I'm 5 years old, and I'm sitting in the back seat of the car, and I'm like, yeah, I know that. And I can still remember that vividly. And now that I think about it, I'm like, wow, I had that understanding from then. And I knew then that's why I was here, not what that meant. Mm-hmm. So I've been seeking my whole life, gathering my own understanding of who I am as spirit and how God communicates to me, and has reached out in so many different ways to try to communicate. And so, ultimately what happened was, around, I guess it was 40 years old, that crossroads that people often go through. 40, you don't realize it, but when you look back, you're like, my gosh, it was around 40 years old. Yeah. I started receiving messages that were guiding me very specifically. Now, what I had done was, offered myself in service, literally, laid myself down and said, use me in whatever way you need me, right? However I can serve, and it was when I did that I started receiving, I started receiving the guidance, and of course it was very difficult for me to believe that I was really talking to God. Mm-hmm. But there's no doubt in my mind now. I challenged Him in so many ways, and the patience and love with which He handled me is still to me just humbling, beyond, and awe-inspiring. But that was when He started, at the time I had started, I had become a Reiki master. I was teaching classes, and just following the path in terms of what I would receive in meditation, never really receiving outright messages. I mean, my conversations with him is like you and I talking right now.
Sure.
And, but following very strong synchronistic signs that I would receive, usually in threes, and by then I would go, okay, I get it, I'll do it, you know. And one of those was that, you know, I was to teach the Keys of Enoch, and was given that message early on. Had no idea what the Keys of Enoch were. I was familiar with Enoch. It was as a result of a psychic reading, and, you know, which happened to be taking place in a bookstore.
Huh.
And this woman, it was in Sedona, Arizona, and this woman was telling me that it would serve me well to study the Keys of Enoch because someday I would be teaching them. Well, you know, when you get a message that you know is true and your whole body just goes like a lightning bolt through it.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what? You know, and in my mind I'm going, Enoch, you know, and I knew he was the seventh from Adam, but that's the only thing I knew. And I had never heard of such a thing. And I said, well, what is it? And she said, well, it's a body of teachings. And so in a book, it's a book of knowledge. And I thought, oh, great, she's trying to sell me a book. I'm very skeptical, by the way. And that's why the threes is absolutely, you know, why I just can't seem to function without that. And so, so after the reading, I said to her, now, let me back up a little bit. The reason I was receiving that reading from her, it was a free reading. I don't go out and see psychics, but she literally forced herself upon me. Okay, and I just really wanted to... I had an experience on Bell Rock in Sedona.
Okay.
And I had seen beams of light coming from the sky.
Right.
And when I walked into her bookstore, I saw a postcard with those beams of light. And I went to buy them. And as a result of my recognizing them, she insisted on doing this reading for me.
Gotcha.
So I just assumed she was wanting to sell me a book that she had in the store. Mm-hmm. So after the reading, she had never heard of it. So it took me a year to find it.
Okay.
And when I found it, it literally opened the world for me and answered questions I had been seeking answers to since I was a small child and being kicked out of Sunday school.
Right, right.
So anyway, that started it all. And, you know, it really begins with asking those questions and then saying, use me, take me where you want me to go, show me. And then trust in the messages that you're given.
Mm-hmm,
you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crucial. Did you want to add anything to that as well, Serena? Because you're basically agreeing with the way that it went down for you as well.
Yeah, a lot of the things that she has said also happened for me when I said, you know, use me, you know, in any way, and you feel it in your whole body. When you say that and you mean it, you have just given yourself over to serving the highest good, or love, as I like to call it. And I did that when I was 14, and I almost became a nun.
I can't picture that, but
twice.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I wanted to do it at 14, and I didn't. And when I, announced what I wanted to do, nobody was interested. But then I decided when I was 18, I said, "Hey, I'm legal. I can make that decision, and nobody has any right to say anything about it." And I was literally walking on my way over to a place where I felt, you can go and sign up anyway. So I had taken the bus, and I'm over there, and I'm walking, and I don't remember what happened, but something changed my mind, and I was not fluctuating before then, but at that point, something changed my mind, and it said, "No, you can't do this right now. You have to do something else." So, okay, fine. I trusted myself, but I think what Linn is exemplifying here is the fact that the three things, actually. Number one, she has the integrity and enough consciousness of mind and heart to listen to herself and trust herself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And secondly, the fact that she wants to serve God, or the highest source.
Correct.
Right? Of goodness and righteousness, right? And she's committed to that. And number 3 is that she wants to serve others and help.
Yep.
She wants to help. She wants to be active. She wants to do something. And I think those are the 3 things that each person has to decide for themselves.
Yep.
If they want to do this, they have to have this integrity of mind and heart to absolutely want to follow this path of the highest order, and then to serve whatever it takes. And it's not a fun, I mean, it's not a glamorous life. Let's put it that way. It's not a glamorous life.
For some it might be, but the ones that are really truly doing it in that humility to serve that prime creator, I don't think it's glamorous. I mean, I don't think it is.
No, it's not. No, it's going to be difficult. And a lot of people are not doing that. Now, some people are doing that. And this brings us back around to the crux of our conversation are these, light workers, right?
Yep.
And so there are people who have decided to do this. So, and like you said, Ari, the ones that haven't, they're out there and, what is known as common souls, I guess, right? We can just use that terminology. We heard it the other day when Andrew said that, so I'm like, okay, I like that term. Yeah. It's innocuous enough, but it gets the point across, right? And then you have these other souls that have a fire in them, a passion in them to serve this, to serve this light. And this is what it takes when you decide that you want to serve this light and do what it takes to do this, what you can do to do this. And we know that meditation is not what it's cracked up to be, shall we say? Right.
Well, it's not the end all either.
No, it's not the end all. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
It's
a tool more than anything.
It is a tool to keep you focused, and there are many ways of meditation. I mean, for example, I don't meditate by sitting and doing Om or however. The way I meditate is I focus on beauty and I go into nature and I garden. This is my meditation. It does exactly what meditation is supposed to do. Quiets the mind, silences the mind, and I hear, messages from the sacred, from the mother, and I get understandings, I get insights, light bulbs go off all the time, and I have peace and calm, and I have centeredness and focus, and all of this comes from working with nature, gardening, and focusing on beauty. Even if I have to get on the internet and just look at pictures of nature, or flowers, or children laughing, things like that. And that's a meditation. But meditation is not the end all. It's just a way of getting yourself to a place where you can begin to serve. It's just the beginning.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's where, it does provide me peace from the perspective it's where I commune with my Creator. And I have a chair I sit in, and I'm like, okay, I'm here. Let's have a conversation. I'm paying attention. So it's really a point of focus, kind of like what you said. Going in for you, it's going into nature. I find myself in nature, just really absorbing all of nature, and not really, paying attention to the messages I might be receiving. For me personally, I literally do sit down in a chair and then they come rolling in, Right. So, and the point being, it's different for everyone. Yeah. But you need to try to figure out how Spirit best communicates with you. Right. And that's part of that whole, soul essence, in my opinion.
Right.
And like you said, lady, Serena, I'm looking at your Lady of the Woods screen, but
Lady is the title. That's all. Just Lady of the Woods. That's where I'm from, and that's where I hail from. But yes, my name is Serena. Whatever you choose.
Okay, great. But I, like you, really was drawn to serve as a nun, or to go off into some cave and be with God, and wasn't allowed to. And it's my understanding it's because that's not where the work is any longer. The work is in amongst what you were calling the common ones, what I would call the unawakened ones. And you can't do that sitting in a cave or being in a convent. Right. It's no longer possible. So
no, I feel that we all need to be engaged in life. We all need to be engaged in this process and in this planet, because I mean, that's the arena, that's that's where the playing field is. And so imagine that, we're the football players, and we're back in the locker room, we're watching the
we
game.
We are what?
Football players.
What?
I know it was a bad analogy, but I'm trying to say, okay, we're in a game, we're in this game, right? And we're supposedly we're the players, we're maybe the star players, and we're watching the game from in the locker room from a screen, and instead of participating in the game and helping the team win, right? So, but it's tough. But we were having that conversation also, Serena, that we also then brought Linn into it behind the scenes, about the fact that there's a lot of us that maybe 20 years ago. We're thinking about, I could have maybe joined that march, or maybe signed a petition for that, or have been engaged more in this, and then nothing happened, maybe because of life, because of all the stuff, or just plain apathy, because that's what life does to you, right? Because we're all in the matrix. So we kind of buy into the crap, into the baloney, and we don't do anything. And then 20 years pass, we didn't even, even instruct our children how to, take action, or to be engaged into, into the process of life on this planet. So, generation after generation after generation, we've just basically let the planet go, and that's where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to add anything else to that? I mean, any more insight?
I do, but I want to get back to something that Linn said a minute ago. She said something about, going into a monastery or a nunnery is just not, the way to do it anymore, just to be with God that way.
Right.
But coming out and being active, I think that the ones who are active like that already are with God, because that's what gives them the fire to be active.
Sure.
Yeah. I think that if we can believe in the Jesus Christ story, I mean, Jesus Christ was sent for a reason, right? It wasn't because God was being complacent. It was because God was being active, right? Absolutely. Sending Jesus in to speak with people and to, convey a beautiful message in a peaceful way, right? And this was action that was taken. I don't think God is complacent at all. In my opinion. And I think those people who are compelled to act on this fire that they have to serve and to help, they already have God in them, because God is that fire. So I just wanted to say that.
That's a great point.
I agree. And the whole thing, like you were saying, Jesus was active. And one of my pet peeves, I've talked about this behind the scenes with Ari, is this whole light worker title. And in the midst of that name is the word work.
Okie dokie.
Wow. I didn't catch that until just now when you said that. That is so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what Christ did. I mean, he didn't sit back and say, I've attained ascension and I've reached the 67th level of the 45th dimension and I am therefore achieved. He worked up to his last breath.
Yep.
And
then some.
Yeah, and then some. He continues to do it. The
Yep.
work is not done.
Never. Right.
And so, as light workers, which I perceive myself to be one of those, and I know you two are, and I know many people who call themselves that, yet who don't work at all. They work to serve themselves in many ways, to achieve these titles and do all kinds of things, to gain an ego presence, but to really help and get in the trenches and start helping people to understand their divine essence. There's just not a lot of that going on, in my opinion.
No, there isn't. And some people may get scared by hearing that, like, okay, I don't want to go out there. It's scary, and I'll be killed, I'll be attacked, because especially women still carry the miasm of persecution from thousands of years of being persecuted for speaking her truth, right? I mean, every woman I talk to, almost 99% of them, they're afraid. I'm like, well, why don't you speak these things? Why do you only say them to me? Why, why don't you go out there and start talking to other people? Well, no, I'm afraid. Afraid? Why? I don't know. I'm just afraid. I don't want to be killed. I don't want anything to happen to my kids. I don't want to. This is always what comes out of their mouths, is this fear because of being persecuted for millennia for speaking her truth and for speaking her mind. I mean, because, let's face it, most light workers are women anyway, right?
Right.
So, But this is, and I understand that. So the point is, you can start with small things. You can start in small circles. You can start talking to people who will listen to you, not to people who don't, but to people who will. And you can do blogs. You can write little articles. You can make comments on websites. You can put your energy to it. You can sign those petitions. You can start off small. You can do something in your neighborhood. You can do something every single day that will speak your truth, that say, I'm walking my talk. Even if it's a little thing, I'm walking my talk. I'm not just sitting and meditating. I'm walking my talk. I have affected someone. I have spoken. I have written. I have touched. I have something. And that's the beginning. So it doesn't have to be an overwhelming, flat-out statement going out onto the public, No, it could be in small steps in a very local area, like your own life,
Yeah.
I absolutely agree, and it goes from there to, not being attached to the results. And that's one thing I think that trips us all up. Well, they didn't get it. I mean, how many times do I talk to my students and they said, well, I said this and they thought I was crazy. My response is, so? You did it.
Right.
You put it out there. Their consciousness is shifted as a result of that.
Yep.
Whether you see results or not, it's shifted. And this is something that I had to learn. And so, like you said, Serena, going out and doing that one thing. And you may not be a Greg Braden who writes 20 books.
Right.
But you're still affecting lives. And when you stand before the throne, which I love that visual or whatever, but I know it probably is not something a lot of people like to see. But when you stand there, you can say, I did this, this, and this, and yes, I didn't back down. I continue to walk my walk and talk my talk. And so, it's that whole, Andrew Bartzis was talking about neutrality. I call it detachment. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
thank you for that clarification, because I struggle with neutrality.
Right. I too.
I don't like it, but now detachment. I get that.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I can appreciate.
And I can definitely go for that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be, sooner or later the burden does happen, but guess what? We can go back into nature and we can connect to our God, whomever, whatever we call them, and we get refilled, don't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's only when we forget to do that. Mm-hmm. That we lose the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so, and then when you do see the light bulbs turn on, it is just such a moment filled with awe and goosebumps and excitement and watching others go off and do their thing. There's nothing more fulfilling, to me. And so, yeah, we got to, kick a lot of cans down the road. And the bottom line is, and we've talked about this, Ari, we're at 0 hour.
Yeah, we are.
And we can't look back. We have to keep looking forward, and we, have to acknowledge that, guess what, just like we were talking about last summer, and it's a lesson that I have been taught over and over, not all are going to make it. They simply aren't. They have the choice available to them, but they're not. And we're even more into, that place because of choices that are made.
And I think a lot of people who are in the know, and who do have the books and who are out speaking on radio shows and stuff like that. There's many now that are saying that not many are going to make it also. And Jesus spoke about that. And I mean, it's very clear. It's very clear that, there are some that are resonating, maybe even with the higher vibrations, and some are not. Some are still with their little gadgets and their investments and their whatever, their jobs. It is what it is. I wanted to bring the focus into speaking a little bit about, if you're interested in what's happening in this country. because it's one of our favorite topics, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's important to talk about. It's important to talk about because the United States of America, if we can even call it of America anymore, is whatever happens here will happen everywhere. And so, you and I have a lot of, conversations behind the scenes about this. And we did talk about, actually you introduced me to a very interesting and fantastic, eye-opening book called The Harbinger. Uh-huh. And I wanted you, if possible, to talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind, and how it all relates to where we're at now in the history of this country and in the history of this world.
Yeah, well, it goes right along with the light workers not staying awake and going back to sleep.
Right.
Right.
In
my opinion, this country was established as the last bastion of light on the planet, a place where people could come and truly become sovereign souls, truly know what that means on all levels. It was structured in that way, I believe. I know there are many who would take issue, but in my study of history, and believe me, I've spent a lot of time doing that, our founders, that was their goal, was to create an environment where each and every soul could worship God in their own way and experience spiritual growth and evolution in their own way. And for many years, we enjoyed that, not without our struggles, right?
Right.
And so, Serena just wrote the Statue of Liberty. Absolutely, that light that others flocked to, and still do, by the way, despite the issues that, we have in this country. But in order to make that happen, in order for it to happen successfully, those founders, the early people of America, entered into a covenant with God. And, according to the Harbinger, we were protected by God as a result of that covenant because of the hope that we offered to the world. And we abandoned that covenant, not once, not twice, but over and over again, in terms of, living as that country of love and light and freedom. And with a holy focus. And so what the Harbinger says, and it was, I found this book last summer. It came to me in a very powerful way. And, and I'd always believed that America was the New Jerusalem. Enoch teaches us that in the Keys of Enoch, that in the New World, that power of the planet will be shifted to this country, and that it was being set up in that way. And so when I got this book, it struck a lot of chords, because in July of 2001 I had a very distinct message from God. I was doing a Sundance, and he was giving me guidance on the next step in my journey.
Did you say you were doing a Sundance?
I sure was, but I didn't pierce.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh God! Continue, please. Oh my God! I'll have to talk to you about that later. Wow.
Yeah, 4 days of fasting and dancing in the high Colorado mountain heat. But anyway, and it was all to bring me to the point of he was having me totally drop what I was doing in terms of business, what was generating my income, and that I was to start my holistic healthcare practice, and was to do, of all things, colonics and chelation and different things that I'd never dreamed of doing. And I was asking him why, and this was the end of July of 2001, and he says, well, it's time for you to, start your work. And I said, well, yeah, but why now? And he says, because it's time. And I said, well, you mean time in terms of the events unfolding in front of us? And he says, yeah. And, through the course of the conversation, I was like, well, I don't really understand how I can support myself. And he was saying to me, well, I'm going to send my people to you, and they'll be coming to you specifically for healing. And I'm saying, but how will they find me? Why will they find me? How's that going to happen? And he at that time told me that there was going to be a major event in the middle of September. And this was in 2001.
Jeez.
That would shift the world's consciousness. And now I am dancing at this time, dust all over the place, blowing a turkey whistle, and having this conversation in my head, and mad the whole time because I can't pass out and get a vision like everybody else is.
Wow. And who was this conversation with again? I'm sorry.
It was with God.
Okay.
And I was saying, okay, well, if there's going to be a major event, and immediately what I was showing, which was partially from my training, but I originally, I had that whole apocalyptic scenario go through my head, whatever, and I'm thinking, okay, it could be a meteor, it could be a huge earthquake, geophysicals in some way. And I'm blowing that whistle and I'm going, well, I am having a hard time understanding why people would be interested in getting colonics if, the world is coming to an end as a result of an earthquake, you know?
Yeah.
And he told me at that time, he said, no. He said, this is the first event. One of many, if America doesn't take the right steps in the right direction.
Huh.
And, and he said that the events there would be a breather after that time to prepare his people, to get them awake and aware that, the time was upon us, and so that they could prepare themselves. And then after that, the events would start coming literally back to back. Now, I didn't know how long that would be, but I think we're in that point right now,
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I said to him, because I'm a woman and, I'm about love and people learning their lessons as gently as possible. And I was like, well, why do you have to do this? I don't understand why you're taking this step. And you know what his response to me was?
What?
How else do I get their attention?
Huh.
And so, I knew it wasn't his event. I mean, it was something he was allowing, she. And when I hear God speak to me, it's a masculine voice, generally. And so, and lo and behold, I'm supposed to be traveling to New York City in September, the day of 9/11.
Yeah.
And I was given a message the week before not to go.
Wow.
Because I was commuting back and forth to New York at that time. My offices were in New York City. So, that got my attention. And I've been paying attention since then and waiting. And then this book, The Harbinger, comes along. And in that, he unfolds all of the steps to help us become aware that America is under judgment because we have not upheld our part of the covenant. And unfortunately, I think we've passed the point of no return.
Yeah.
There's always hope, of course, but every decision that we're making every single day now is not about making us more sovereign in terms of to our souls, to ourselves.
Right.
It's about making us captive.
Yep.
In so many ways. And we sit back and let it happen.
Yep.
Don't speak up. And, that's to me what the Harbinger speaks of. It's to get people to pay attention and the supernatural signs that exist as a result of 9/11. And Jonathan Cahn overlays that with when Israel broke covenant with God.
Yep.
And how, he punished them. And it was not without warning. It's not a vengeful, wrathful God. I mean, it's just like when your kids don't listen to you. What do? You escalate, the ramifications of not listening. Or they wrecked that truck because they went ahead and did it their own way and they crashed into a wall,
Right.
To me, in my mind, it's no different than that. And so the fact that book came out last year, and it is, as I understand, it's still on the New York Times bestseller.
Is it really? Wow.
Yeah. Is, again, God reaching out to us and saying, wake up, because we as American citizens have been incredibly gifted too. Yeah. And that was not without reason.
Mm-hmm.
It was so we could then reach out and provide that same gift of life, love, and freedom to others.
Yeah.
And, I get real upset with Americans who constantly want to dwell on the poverty in this country. Our people don't know poverty.
Yeah.
If you've done any traveling, our people don't know poverty. Everybody has a cell phone. Most people have a car. Everybody has a TV. They aren't really worried where their next meal's coming from. Now, there are situations like that, but there are whole countries out there where they truly don't know where their next meal is coming from, and it takes every moment, every ounce of their consciousness to focus on just staying physically alive. Mm-hmm. And we have been gifted with that really being taken care of for us. And what do we do with that extra time that's been given to us? Instead of developing our soul, we watch reality shows.
Right, yeah.
Oh my God, what a visual and poignant analogy.
Yep.
God. Yeah.
And it's sad, and that brings me great sorrow, and I don't, and again, how do you affect it? One person at a time, and, for gosh sakes, I did my first March on Washington. I didn't march, I stood there. I went to Washington, D.C. with this Abolish the IRS rally. And was strongly called to do that. Last minute decision, other women and I went. I got to see firsthand. Literally, they weren't wanting us there. They were doing everything to prevent us to even have the free right of assembly there. And to see how things have so changed from the way it was planned, orchestrated, and the way most Americans believe it still is when it really isn't. If you don't ever leave your house and get off the television or whatever and really look around, you don't know what's going on.
That's right. That's right.
So again, it's one person at a time, and it was so funny when I came back, I had several friends going, I've never known an activist, and I'm like, I'm not an activist.
Funny.
But I just felt I had to be there to bring my energy into, the situation.
Yeah.
And, I don't know that it's salvageable what we have there at all,
Yeah.
Well, this brings me to a question now, and taking this to the next level, which is the discussions that Ari and I have often, is, the way that you are perceiving, how many people are not really getting onto the waking up bandwagon, let's put it that way. And so what makes them so blind? Well, how do you not see what is in front of you? And this can be mind-boggling for a lot of people who see clearly, but there are a lot of people who Ari and I have had a discussion about this often, who are not ensouled. They're just vacant or common souls that are not, I don't know what they are, but I know that they're not of a divine spark. And a lot of people may have a fit with that statement, and that's okay. They can have their fits. This is my observation. This is what I see very clearly. And that there is an element that you spoke of at the beginning of the show that is causing a lot of this. It's not entirely the fault of the people, though they are, some responsibility is theirs, absolutely. But there is this element of evil that is not being talked about or acknowledged enough as a contributing factor to all of these things that we're talking about. Can you address what you see about that?
Well, I agree. Evil is a big factor in that. And you're right, there are souls that every soul has a divine spark, in my observation. But it depends on its origin, truly its mission. From what I have been shown, there are souls that have descended here to assist and who come with a higher level of understanding, which oftentimes they forget because they have to come into such density and darkness, the responsibility they have to awaken and to tap into all their gifts and to activate them here in this realm of creation is incredibly difficult because of these evil forces. They attack them, much like Andrew Bartz says, you come through those portals, you come through those gateways, you take on those codes. And then there are souls that have absolutely had their origin here. I see the way I have been showing it and taught it on the inner planes is there's cosmic origin souls and there's earth-based origin souls. And there's old earth-based origin souls, but there's a lot of brand new ones who just are totally new to this whole physical manifestation life scenario. And again, they're learning how to survive in the physical, and that is a meaningful lesson. You've already been through that. I've been through that multiple lifetimes. Ari's been through that, but their soul is at that first step of coming into mastery, if you will, of the physical. And so it's very difficult to reach that soul essence. And then you put on top of that the fallen forces, which the last thing they want to do is have people's lights turned on. Then it's an insurmountable task. And I think that's why Christ and others have come for those beings that are like that. Now there's absolutely evil ones that have sold their soul, if you will, and have maybe even, I'm not so sure, but I have a pretty strong feeling that there are those that were designed to be that way, to be here as well. But for the most part, they're baby souls in my understanding. And again, whatever baby steps you can get them to take, that's ascension, as long as their soul's evolving and moving forward. And in my understanding, Enoch speaks about this, they will be taken care of. The ones that are more at risk, and you guys tell me what you think, but the ones that are more at risk are the ones that are awakened and not doing their work.
Yep.
And not recognizing evil for what it is, not acknowledging evil and saying, no more, not on my watch.
Exactly.
And there's very few doing that, Serena, as you know. And many of the leaders aren't doing it. The spiritual quote unquote leaders, they have this whole thing of, they get it all diluted down. That's your lessons you have to learn. You came here to learn that. You came here to learn this. No, those lessons were the garbage we picked up coming into this world.
Right. Yeah, they're not lessons. Not lessons, obstacles. That's all.
Obstacles, absolutely. And when you recognize them for that, I mean, again, when you're living in that, for the most part, when you're living in that place of your soul in connection with your divine essence and your creator, even those obstacles are easily traversed. They don't go away, but they're more easily traversed, and you look back and go, well, I got through that one pretty easy. Didn't like it while I was in it, but, I'm on the other side of it now, and a lot of people never get past those obstacles. I can't tell you how many obstacles I've, gone around. Mm-hmm. I've had a dysfunctional family. I had a dysfunctional ex-husband. I've been through it all, but it doesn't hold me back. And that's the other thing that the evil forces use a lot is that victim consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to, again, detach from those experiences, take what, we can from that. And sometimes there's not much good to take from them. And you just, do the best you can to detach from it. But there truly are. At this point in time, we've got zombies walking on the planet, eating other people, all kinds of, there are beings that have sold their soul for power, control, and keeping people in the dark.
Yeah. Total control, manipulation, and serving those forces that are probably here to eradicate life and like Andrew said, probably even it goes even beyond that. It probably even taking over worlds, galaxies, and who knows? I mean, who knows? I mean, what I always tell Serena, so we just know that it's the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg what we're scratching.
Right.
And sometimes we don't even know if the information is even 100% correct that we're able to decipher all the time. So,
Lynn, hold that? I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Hold it. Right?
Yep.
Lynn, have you looked around and asked about how many of this population on the planet do you see? Do you get a sense of a percentage of how many people are in, what state? Have you gotten to that at all?
It's very small. I hate to even put a number to it. I would say an optimistic is 20%.
20% is what?
Is aware and could make the shift at this time.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because I'm always telling Ari that I think 80% of the people are not.
Yeah.
So if 80% are not, and you're seeing 20% that are, that kind of works.
Yeah, it's the same number, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is crazy. I mean,
now, on the other hand, I have had just recently good experiences of people waking up in places that you wouldn't have thought. The two ladies I went to Washington, D.C. with were devout Catholics and very much involved in the whole anti-abortion, the horrific things that they're doing with abortion now, killing babies that are born alive and everything else. And one of them goes to Mass every single day and on the weekend, and the other one, I think goes on the weekend. And so, one thing that always astonishes me is to learn that most Catholics never read the Bible because their priest does it for them. And so,
really?
Yeah, I didn't know that either. It was a real shock for me.
Wow.
And I learned that. And so, on the way down, it was kind of difficult for me because, I'm always interested in the larger conversations. And they were talking a lot about the anti-abortion and everything like that. But on the way back, it was a nighttime drive. And I don't know, something came up. And one lady was aware of the work that I do, but she's never engaged me in any way in terms of asking about it, wanting to know more information. Not interested at all. And quite frankly, she didn't believe in the end times, didn't know what those were. Her church had not taught her about those, which that was a shock for me as well. And so anyway, the other lady, we were talking and something came up and I just had to give my perspective. And anyway, as the conversation continued, and it was talking about evil. Oh, this is what it was. They over and over again, they kept saying, I don't understand why our politicians allow this to occur. And if I heard that once on that trip, I heard it 100 times. Finally, I had enough of it, and I said, do you not recognize evil for what it is?
Right.
What are you talking about?
Yep.
Then I got on my soapbox and I started talking about how evil was influencing every one of them. It's very difficult to go into that city and not be taken over.
Yep.
And that's the forces that we're fighting aren't those individual personalities, that it's evil in general. And the sooner we recognize that, we will finally start accomplishing something.
Mm-hmm.
And so the lady, the one who doesn't go to Mass every day, we were talking, she says, well, how do you define evil? And we got into this long conversation, and pretty soon she goes, well, what do you think of the reptilians?
Oh my God.
I was like, I looked at her for the drive. I said, my coaching skills coming into play. Well, what do you think about that? And she says, this is all very new for me. But she said, I stumbled across this radio show that I have been listening to that's called Tribulation Now, that is talking about the very things you're talking about. And it's an end times show. And these are Christian men who are talking about the reptilians and the archons and Planet X. And
are you serious?
I'm serious. I am serious. And she says, so do you think this all is true? And I said, well, what do you think? And she's going, you know, when you look at it through those eyes, she says, all this makes sense, doesn't it?
You see it, yeah. You see it.
And I said, exactly. And that's what we have to get people to do, is to look at it for what it is. And then they understand that we got to get rid of all those people, or we have to go to God every single day and say, change their hearts, change their mind. I'm not optimistic because I think they've totally sold out, you know. But we can, you know, and when we're doing that action, when we're taking those steps of saying, we recognize this evil, we want it out of our country, we acknowledge our covenant, we want to be the light to the world, again, we're taking those steps. And we can either sit and do that and pray in our rooms, or we can then take it into action and go out and speak to others. And whether you're called to petition or send out emails or whatever, that is taking those steps, because that's really where we're at. You know, the other neighbor that I gave this book, The Harbinger, to, who had never heard of it, she was Methodist, she brought it back to me and was holding it across her chest with her arms across it, and she goes, oh my God, you have changed my world.
Yeah.
And she looked at me with this fearful look on her face, and she says, where do you think we're at? And I said, we're in judgment right now.
Yeah.
And she says, I believe that too. And then she invited me to speak to her Sunday school class.
Oh my God.
And so I was like, well, are you sure they would want someone like me to come to the Sunday school class? I'd be happy to speak with them, but I'll also be happy to help you be prepared to talk about this.
That's it.
Wow, that is amazing. Oh my God, I love that. Oh, two things. First, I would like to know if it's possible that you can get the name of that station, because I'd like to hear what this Tribulation radio talk show is talking about, especially if they're coming from the angle of the church. I'm curious about hearing that.
I was so jubilant after I found out about it, and I've listened to 2 or 3 of their shows, and believe it or not, I'm sitting here going, amen!
Oh, Lord. Now you got me talking.
It is a blog talk radio show, and it's called, it's Tribulation-Now.
Okay, can you put that in the text box? This way I'll have it and I'll look for it. And then I wanted to get to my other point, since we're obviously still going on, right, Ari?
Oh, yeah. Okay. 2-hour show.
Lynn, you just said that you feel like we're in judgment now. We're in the judgment phase now. Yeah, thank you for that. And I kind of feel that that's where we're at now. Ari kind of gets there as well, because, you know, we'll be talking on the phone for hours, and we go around in circles, and then we come back, and we always come back to the final line that says, you know, everything that we can do, that we can possibly think of doing has been done, and other people are doing what we can't do, and we're doing what other people can't do, and, you know, we just feel like there is a point where there's nothing left to be done. And I know this kind of goes against a little bit what we're talking about being active, because there's always enough action that can change and tip any scale, anywhere in the cosmos, in any dimension. I don't care what it is, but enough people getting together can create something different. But you're saying that it feels like we're in judgment at this point in time, or, you know, to use what's another word for this, Ari? Like the decision's already been made.
Yeah, the door is shut.
The door is shut. You've said that. I have a quote. I wrote it down with the date and everything. I have that there. So we get there as well. We kind of believe that that's the case. Can you talk more about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think the door is shut for a mass exodus. But I don't think the door is shut to influence one on one on one.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it's all about saving souls and helping them to escape off this. I think that we're in the third dimension by mistake. This is my belief from things that
how interesting.
Yeah.
And we're fifth dimensional beings who got tripped up in all these Luciferian, whatever you want to call them, antics, and we got stuck in the third dimension. And that's why I agree. People with bestial behavior, because it really was not designed for humans who are ensouled to be here. And so the goal, the plan, is to get as many out of this dimension as possible. And the original plan, I believe, that I think the door is absolutely shut on, is the mass migration.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I agree.
And I think that now it is again that individual. I'm going to do my part, and there actually are some sacred texts that say if you save one soul, you yourself are rescued. So, and the saving of the soul is, in this world, everything, we live in an experimental zone, is what Enoch says, where, I always say it's like a bunch of shit is thrown at the wall and see what sticks kind of thing. And how far can light go away from source and still be in the light? And, so, in that sense, as creators, what we are to do is to bring light into the darkest corners.
Exactly.
And to send it back. And to expand it. Whether you want to say send it back or expand it or whatever.
Or transmute it.
Transmute it. And so each time that we do that, through our prayers, through our actions, through our conversations, through our works, we're adding to that light quotient, if you will. But in this realm of experimentation, everything's either spiraling up or it's spiraling down. And quite truthfully, there is no neutral place. You're either spiraling up or you're spiraling down.
Thank you.
Yep, I agree.
And so, that's a simple question to ask yourself. What's this action going to do? Is this going to cause me to spiral up, or is it going to cause me to spiral down? Is it building my light quotient, or is it detracting away from my light quotient? And that's a term that Joshua David Stone used, and I love it, because it makes it kind of measurable. Am I putting fuel in my light quotient tank, or am I draining it?
Right.
And it's the first step is, as light workers, is to get people conscious of that. Is what you are doing at this moment adding to your light or detracting from your light?
So, question with that in mind, is apathy, and I know the answer, I just want you to address it. Is apathy adding or detracting or subtracting from the light quotient?
Absolutely subtracting.
Okay.
Where's the light in that? And it is something we as light workers struggle with. I can say I've had a day or two of that, and I'm like, why am I doing this? And then when I go in that silent space, or like Serena, you go into the garden, it comes back. Okay, I get it. Cancel. I can't be in that place. And so, you get back behind that stone that you're pushing up the mountain and saying, okay, I'm going to do this till I can no longer do it,
Yep.
Right, or until that stone gets put in place, because so many times, I can't tell you, I've said, okay, I quit, I'm done, I'm out of here, I'll send out an automated response to all of my email contacts, they'll just get the automated response, okay, I'm done, I don't want any more emails like this, I don't want any more information, I want nothing to do with this anymore, I quit, I'm done, I'm going in another direction, see ya, bye.
And you've done that before, though.
I have done this.
Yes,
I have
you
done
have.
this a few times. They get my message and they say, okay, thank you, bye, see ya. And, everything's nice and quiet for a while. And I'm like, wow, this is so great. I'm in my own little bubble and I can create beauty and just think about it. And this is what I do all the time. And then something starts gnawing at me again. And I'm like, I'll hear something or something comes adrift my way. And I'm like, no, I need to address this. this is not like saying, oh, I'm curious about this, what happened. No, I'm not curious about what happened. It's different when I say, as a being of power, as a being of light, I need to address this, okay? It's different. It means that I have to put my light into this scenario and change it. This is not going to slip by me as a point of interest or a topic of conversation over dinner. No, I am addressing it because I am adding my light to this situation and therefore making a change in that way. So when I come out of my bubble, it is to address things, not to just be curious about them. And then one thing leads to another, and then I'm back in it before I know it.
Well, you're recharging as well. You have to recharge.
Yeah, which is really what's happening. Yeah. I know. I see that now. It's a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do the same thing. You go, and you work at it. And, the Christian mystics call that the dark night of the soul. And it's, when you get to the other side, the fortunate thing is usually you're up another rung on the ladder,
Mm-hmm.
And your soul is processing everything that it's had to deal with. It's not easy being in this fallen world. And I know that's a word people don't like to hear, but the truth is the truth, you know?
Yeah.
And what you're talking about, Serena, is when you go back, that's empowerment. That is activating your power. It's not going out and, don't even get me started on these feminist women who, are out there activating power, acting like a bunch of men, but it's just, you are empowered when you come back and you're saying, you're taking that stand and you're not letting the darkness get by on your watch.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's not easy to do, but again, if we can just keep in mind that thing of detachment, and like we've talked about, Ari, you don't make a lot of friends doing that.
Oh, heck no.
No friends.
Everybody's knocking on my door to try to, befriend me here. Yeah, I have to just remind me to look at the calendar and see if I can fit you in next week.
Yeah.
But you know what? I would rather be alone. Okay, and doing the work and just, it's like I tell everybody, nobody knows what I go through because I don't really share it unless I do, and if I do, it's because there's a reason I'm sharing it. It's to make a point, and I don't really care to wear what I've been through as a badge by any means. But it's lonely, but when I'm in it all of me. My soul, my life force, my mind, everything. You're getting me totally, and nothing infuriates me more. I mean, everybody has their pet peeves, right? But I have mine, and I know Serena probably will agree with this one also. Is if I hear that a child is suffering, that just puts me. I don't know what it is. It just infuriates me to such a point that I just want to get up, and if I had an actual physical sword, I would be out there, fighting whatever it is that is causing a child torment or anything like that. And I just recently came across, I think it was yesterday, a video of a little girl. She was 11 years old, and she's being videotaped. I think it's in Yemen, of how she had to leave her family because they were going to sell her or send her off to marriage, an older man, and she was pleading, basically, talking about her situation and why she ran from home, and how many children, are doing this, and in other words, they're suffering through this, that they are committing suicide.
Wow.
And she's saying, why are you doing this to the children? Why are you taking away our innocence? Why are you not allowing us to get education and to thrive and to have joy? And I was there in tears. She even looked like my granddaughter.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. And people are saying that there is no problem with a patriarchy, right? There's no problem with women, right? There is no need for women to be upset. Or if women start talking about what's happening with children and pedophiles and how organized and financed they are, right? That the woman who's talking about it is evil herself, right? Or this, that, and the next thing. Never mind that the situation is happening. They always have this yes, but. No, there is no yes, but. You need to turn around, relinquish your argument, drop it, and turn around, look at that child, and listen to what she's saying and paying attention to this is the situation. These children are now starting to kill themselves. They are recognizing that they do have rights. Finally, thank you, God, that they do have rights to a life. Now, we're talking about children that they do this child bride thing. Children from 6 years old, as young as 6 years old, that these men feel that they have a right to marry and have sex with her, because as long as she's a wife, he can do whatever he wants to her body because it belongs to him. It's his property.
Oh, and let's use the argument of, well, it's their culture. We can't intervene in their culture.
Right.
That is one of the lamest, stupidest things I have ever heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it's a low level. It's not even consciousness.
No.
I don't know what you call it.
No, it isn't.
It's beneath consciousness.
Yep.
And again, they're using them as energy. You know, it's really what it's all about, and it's what's in front of us. You're either going to be part of that energy hive, or you're going to get off this rock. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you all, and I know that Ari and I had talked about this, was that whole, Andrew talked about it, and I was like, thank you, that finally explains what I was feeling and sensing. After we recognized that the door was closed, there also seemed to be an emptiness of just higher energy around us in general.
Yes, and God, that's right. And you did mention that because you spoke with your friend, right? And he got that information as well. Yeah. Interesting. And then Andrew did bring that up. But Serena can probably address that. Energy of the ascended ones and angelics and archangelics, Serena.
Yeah. To give you some background,
please give me some background.
Okay.
Because I'm lost right now.
Okay.
Well, he's an artful traveler, and when he goes out to look at the, he goes into the cosmos. He has that ability to, teleport in that way. When he first started doing it, and he would go above Earth and through our planes above Earth, he would always comment on just how it was jam-packed with beings that were observing us and or helping us. And then there was those of the light, but also those of the dark. But it was just, he always oftentimes defined it as, or described it as like a football stadium that is just filled with all the spectators. And they're watching the game that's down on the field, to use Ari's analogy again.
Right.
But that, it was just bumper to bumper, beings, crafts, you name it out there. When we started feeling this whole vacancy, was actually in January or so. He went out to see what was going on, and there was no one there. And he was like in shock. He didn't know what was going on. And to me at that time, I was like, well, that's the loss or the gap that I'm feeling. I literally felt a loss had occurred. And so, and I'm not someone who's constantly calling on this being or that being, but I had always felt there was a foundation there that I could pull from. And I felt like I was absolutely, other than my personal relationship with God and Christ, I was on my own.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I got what you're saying.
Did you experience that at all?
I have. Recently. Yeah, I have recently. It's almost like a lull. It's like a hush. It's silence. There's no one there.
Yeah.
Hello.
So my question was, okay, has it now been put into our hands to see what we can do on our own? We're at that point. Or have they been temporarily reassigned? New beings are coming in. What he was showing at that time was that they had there were many of them who were waiting for that beam of light to come through that we've all been talking about, to experience it and to literally ascend. Now, whether that's the case or not, I don't know. But when I heard Andrew talking about the fact that, Prime Creator came in over March 21st and 22nd, and he, what's he calling? He did
an audit.
The audit, yeah.
And he took everybody out of the game.
Mm-hmm. And I concur with that. That's what I'm picking up as well.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that I think that absolutely occurred. I mean, I felt something, and it was powerful in terms of the loss.
Yeah.
And it was, it took me a little bit of time to adjust to it. And actually, though, now that I look back at it, it's given me a different level of empowerment.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree, and I think it's probably what you mentioned before. It's like, why was that done? Probably for that same reason, for that empowerment. Mm-hmm. Because we really need to step up our game and reclaim, this planet. We are the ones that need to do that. And a lot of people are really thinking, and here it is again, my spiel, okay, it's my spiel, it is mine, okay, that people are thinking that it's something external to us that is going to redeem us or make us sovereign or whatever. The proverbial little spaceships coming to pick us up, pluck us out of here, or I don't know, whatever that may look like for a lot of people. But it really, if we're all sitting down under a tree and just thinking that there's nothing left to do, I hate to break the news to you, but the planet is already, it's metastasizing with the evil, and if we don't step in and we don't become those antiviruses or whatever that is, the white blood cells, we're going to be screwed. I mean, majorly.
Well, I have two things to add to that. First of all, regarding the planet, I mean, I was told in 2004, a lot of people get all wrapped up in saving the planet. Well, what I've been shown and told over and over again is she's fine. She's a much superior consciousness to us. And she's, she literally, we're her offspring. And she's going to be okay. And actually, she has made her ascension. And I was told that in 2004, and showing it very clearly. The question at that time, and it still remains to be seen, was whether humanity could make that shift.
Correct.
And all the resources prior to that, which I was very involved in helping her with her grid. I didn't realize it, but I was involved with that. Those resources that have been dedicated to helping her do what she needed to accomplish to make that ascension, were being diverted to mankind. Mm-hmm. And so, that's one thing. The second thing is, again, one of the things that just makes my hair stand on end is the light workers, quote unquote, who go on and on about the Christians and the fact that they say Christ has saved them and they don't have to do any work. Well, the light workers are equally as guilty, waiting for the extraterrestrials or the ascended masters or whomever to come save them. And the bottom line is, all of them, Christ included, have come to show us how to save ourselves.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And, and save ourselves. I'm talking about humanity. Mm-hmm. Again,
yep.
The Earth's consciousness is far beyond us. And I think it's the highest state of arrogance to think that we save her. We can add to her love. We can add to her light by being beings of love and light. But she's far beyond what we are.
Thank you for expressing that. Wow.
Yep. Agree. I agree with that. Absolutely.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Spot on. So what is your biggest frustration with all of this?
Oh, thank you. I wanted to ask for the same thing. We want to hear some,
ranting.
Ranting. We know you can do it.
Yep. Oh, believe me. Yes, you can.
Okay. Well, let's see. American, one of the hugest frustrations, which I think we've covered, Americans not recognizing what they've been given and the roles that they're to play in influencing mankind's soul evolution. That's huge. The other thing is that I don't think that our understanding of the divine feminine goes far enough. And I think it's part of our problem in terms of getting it addressed. And yeah, I can remember back one of my first encounters, I was studying with my Ojibwa shaman, and she wanted me to go see a psychic who she perceived to be really good, to give me further understanding of who I was. And when I went to see him, he blurted out to me that my soul name was Sophia. Now, I didn't even know you had soul names at that point. But when he did that, again, one of those electric jolts went through my entire being. And I asked him what that was, and he said, it is the sacred feminine. And so I went back to this shaman, and I was in a ladies group with her, and when there was about 28 ladies in that group. And I was fairly new to all of that. And I said, well, this is what he told me. My name was Sophia, and that it was of the sacred feminine. Now, they talked about goddesses a lot, but I didn't really, but I'd never heard the name Sophia. You know, I'd heard of, like, the Hindu goddesses.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you know who Sophia is? Because I said, I just know there's more to that. No one knew except one woman. She goes, well, you know, I think I have a book in my library that talks about her, Sophia, the goddess of wisdom. Now, at the time, I was having no part of this because I did not perceive myself to be part of the, quote, feminist movement. Now, I had been very involved. I was a pioneer as a woman. I was the first female salesperson in a 2,500-person male sales force. You know, and I moved up the ladder and became a vice president of marketing of a major medical equipment company. So I gravitated in that world, but I was always a woman in that world, not a woman pretending to be a man in that world.
Right.
And now when I look out, I see a lot of women pretending to be a man in that world. But when I got this book on Sophia, which, by the way, I would love to know where this word Sophia comes from. I think
right.
It's an absolute distortion,
Yeah.
Of it. But ultimately, I was doing a shamanic journey at one point, and I was taken to Sophia. And the divine feminine is the matrix of what all creation comes out of. And so, it's like she provides the stuff and the substance. And literally, my vision that I was given of her, with me being a part of that, she was a divine bird-like being. I would say a mix between a falcon and an owl, and literally out in the abyss. And out of her worlds and galaxies and universes were just coming out of her as she's sitting there and holding the receptive space for creation to occur. Almost like the womb of our womb. We hold that space as women for that fetus to come into being.
Sure.
And then we birth it. And so, to me, the divine feminine is that space. It's holding the energy. It's holding that divine grace, if you will, for creation to come through and for it to evolve. And our world is so screwed up, as I know I've heard you guys talk about, in terms of distorting what that divine feminine is. And we've got it all mixed up in terms of having it be equal with what goes on with men. And we're guilty as women deciding to become men versus holding our ground and staying as women who nurture and grow life. And I'm saying life with a capital L. The men are active. They go, and that's just what this realm of creation is about at this point in time. Our role is receptive. And the men are to be receptive, to be active to our receptivity with honor, and vice versa. And it has just been totally distorted and turned upside down. And I don't know if I've been clear on that at all. But I know, Ari, that you're familiar with Shekinah. The Shekinah is the Holy Spirit energy. And again, the churches are totally confused on this. The Holy Spirit in the church is masculine. And it is not masculine, it's feminine. And
well, the church doesn't recognize any feminine at all, except for the one Virgin Mary who gave birth to the child as the vessel, but that is it. And that is where the feminine's usefulness or any reference to the feminine in the church takes place is as a vessel, period. That's it.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because this is also an offshoot of where maritime law comes in, where all ships are by law supposed to have feminine names. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did.
And that's why when the ship comes into dock, it comes into the berth, right? Because it's berthing in the canal, it's being born, the goods are coming off the ship.
Yeah.
And that's the child, and this ugly archontic distortion that has been made, which the state and church have been in collusion with in creating this whole god-awful archontic matrix, an interpretation of what the feminine is. And if they're doing that, it's obvious, because they don't want people to know what the feminine really is. Okay?
Because it's through us. I mean, that all humanity can get in touch with their divine spiritual essence. That is what the Book of Wisdom with the Shekinah roaming the streets, calling and saying, I will be here till you are gone. She will not abandon us, because we have to have that connection. She provides that connection. And the archonic forces don't want us connecting to that. So they're going to distort it in all ways that they can. And part of that is destroying the role of the woman, a large part of it, in society. Yeah. Men don't even know what women, no one knows what women are about.
Exactly. Men or women don't know what women are really all about, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And, it's a huge responsibility to take on. I think of the Jewish faith. I studied with the Kabbalistic masters, and I took issue with them because, in the temples, the women aren't allowed around the altar and the main part of the areas of worship. They're on the periphery.
Yep.
And when I was in Svat, Israel, and was asked to study with them, I asked them at that time, I said, why do you keep women? We were at a second table. The rabbi and the men were all at one table, and the women were at the second table. And they said, do not you know? And I said, no. And they said, because you don't need this. You already have the light. You already have the spirit. It's in your being.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah.
Who said this now?
Hasidic rabbis in Svat, Israel, Kabbalistic masters.
Okay.
So, and that again, they acknowledge it, and they treat their women that way. They treat them with honor and respect. And they, they said the men have to be closer to the altar because it's harder for them to get it. They're not wired that way. You're already wired, and that's why they perceive the women to be the holders of the spiritual hearth. That's really what the hearth is about. It's that spiritual connection.
Yes.
And
that's why the chalice is a female vessel.
Yes. So, and the New Age is totally, quite frankly, in my opinion, messed that up as well. They understand.
Wow. Well, that's news to me. I had no idea there was any sect on this planet that actually saw that. I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me that.
Yeah, they do. And I was like, really? But then, and through my studies of Sophia and what I've learned, it's such great beauty and strength, but incredible responsibility to hold and maintain that connection.
And, yes, obviously, especially when everything in the world has been conspired and created and structured to take it away from you.
Yeah. And when you look at the inner secret teachings around Christ and Mary Magdalene, that's what you see. She was the connection. Yeah. She truly was the priestess who was that conduit of the divine energy.
Huh. Yes.
And so when we're marrying 6-year-old babies, that's taking away, they're literally siphoning their divine connection off.
Yep.
And they know this, which is why they do this, and this is why their laws are what they are, and this is why, and we're talking again about those men who married these child brides in the Middle East. And this is, they do this because they know, and they have such a hatred for what they don't have. You see, they have such a hatred for it.
And it goes further, they marry them off, and then they don't allow them to go to school, to read, to grow up. They keep them, in prison. Because again, got to do everything to keep the light from coming to them.
That's right. They don't want the light coming through the woman or to them. Yes.
Yeah. Keep them in the shadows. And again, nobody's talking about it.
No.
Why is that?
It's the archontic forces.
Okay. So let's make a pact. Okay? Because we're that's my mission. That's Serena's mission. I know it's your mission. Okay? We're calling all the listeners out there. Hear ye, hear ye.
Yeah, all of them.
Hear ye, all of you who are hearing this. This is really, really important. This is this is what makes us sovereign. Yes, I mean this is why we're here. We need to talk about this, folks. We need to be honest with ourselves and get this message out and be courageous. Yeah, you're not going to be popular. Right?
No. Nor understood. But it's we've got to try, and it doesn't matter, how many times you get the message out and nobody gets it, and you get bad comments, and you get all these people who are on their high horse, and they're going to correct you because they know better, because kumbaya, and we're all it's getting this message out. I mean, this is like really, really crucial. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, we've got to do this. It's us now. We have to do the work, and so I mean, I don't know. I mean, sometimes it's just like, oh my God, it's overwhelming. But whatever it takes. I mean, if I have to take a microphone, and it's like I was telling a friend of mine yesterday. It's like, I was telling her how uncomfortable it is for me to do this kind of thing, right? Do radio. It's like, oh my God, really? And I was telling her why it's, this is the reason why it's uncomfortable. I used to stutter. Oh my.
I used to, as a child. I mean, it's like I was so, introverted because I just didn't fit in, right? And so I was like afraid to speak up, and so I would stutter. I was so unsure of myself that I actually had to, I was telling even Serena today, I think she found that about it today, that I actually had to go through theater classes and drama classes to teach myself to get out of that. And I was so good at it that I would get standing ovations all the time. I mean, that's how much I perfected that. But it's overcoming that fear. It's overcoming your inabilities. Your what you perceive as being a lack of, overcoming that and going out there and being a steward for humanity. In whichever way that looks. For us, is doing this. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be on the air. But so any empowering words, how do you envision all of us, or as many of us as possible? What is what would you say to the listeners to put a rocket up their ass? Can we say that on air?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, first of all, what have you done lately?
Right.
What are you doing in your walk day to day? And, if it's, I'm just praying, or, all I can do is pray, I'm one who offers that. No, you can do more. Do you have a mouth? Do you have 2 feet? What bothers you? Just like what we're talking about. We have to have open and direct conversations with people. And finding out how secure they are in who they are as soul, and if they're not confident in that, what can we do to help them become more confident in that? You two ladies don't lack that confidence, and you could certainly, and I'm sure you do, help guide people every day. You do it, I know, through the website. So, that's, you've got to be out in the world, as painful as it can be. And not living in the delusional, I have ascended and or I'm love and light and darkness doesn't exist in my world. Well, no, you've just been deactivated.
Yeah.
Your love and light is literally.
That was me, Lynn.
Was it?
Yes, it was, ma'am. Yes, it was.
What changed your course?
The holy 2x4. The archontic 2x4. Oh my God. No, I believed up until 2009 that I was the light. And Ari, can you hear me better?
Much
now?
better, yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm like 3 inches away.
Okay, yeah, a little while you were fading.
No, I'm constantly 3 inches away, so something's up. But I felt I was impervious is the word. I was impervious. This darkness existed, but not in my world and not with me. It's not going to touch me. It only will touch me if I think about it or dwell on it. And it happens out there, but not in here. And it's just not going to happen. That's all, right? In the meantime, reality it was happening all the time. I just didn't recognize it at the time, right? I didn't recognize how it worked, how insidious it was, and how it operated through family and friends, right? I didn't know this. And the migraines that I had my entire life, blinding, nauseating migraines.
Wow.
And I would get them 3 or 4 times a week. I mean, really, and I'd bounce off the walls. These things are horrid. And and then an incident happened in 2009. And that's a story in itself, and we definitely don't have time for that right now. But from that moment on, I was instructed to smudge the house with sage, which I happen to have in my house, and then to take a sea salt shower, which I did. And after that, the excruciating pain and psychic attack that I had, this was a major psychic attack. This one was designed to take me out, which I also didn't know at the time. I was told this by other people who had tuned in with their energies after getting my email, my story. And they said, oh my God, this was designed to take you out. And I'm like, what? Why? And, I pieced it all together. But after I did the smudging and the sea salt, the pains immediately went away. So these pains were not from my body. They were coming from the outside. And I realized the forces that were at work within my own life. If they can touch me like that with excruciating physical pain, then imagine what else they can do. So I had to look at this at this point because I was almost dead. Right? And so I had to take this seriously. And then I had to question every other thing that happened that, okay, so if they did this in this instance, then what other instance might they have done this to? So I had to think back in my whole life. And I started to see how they were working and what they were affecting. And also the Anastasia series of books at the Ringing Cedars. There's a series of 9 books. And she talks about the dark forces extensively. And this woman is absolutely angelic, right? I mean, she's just an absolute wise woman of the highest order, in my opinion. And so I respected what information she gave. And if she can talk about the dark forces so much and how we needed to pay attention to their reality and how they function in our lives, then I said, I really need to do this. So basically, she gave me permission to look into this without fear. And so I had to. So after that event where I was almost taken out and having, this proverbial permission to investigate this, I had no choice. I had to understand how they were working. And I realized that they had been working in my life all along, how they affected other people, and how I can get rid of them. And ever since I've done this, actually, I have less suffering from them because I can see how they're working. It doesn't mean they don't touch me. They do. But they don't get me down the way they used to because I was thinking it was me. It was physical. I was sick or I was suffering karma or, any of those archontic memes, philosophies, if you will. And no, it wasn't any of that. It was simply dark forces and psychic attack. And so I've been able to clear myself of them quite a bit. And that's how I started to see that.
So you basically changed your perception. You were more open to be able to recognize that there were forces out there, and possibly even change the way you were thinking, right?
Yes, I had to change the way I was thinking, because my thinking was erroneous.
Right. And so,
I thought I was love and light and the dark could not touch me. That's what my thinking was. I was adamant, and I felt the more stubborn I was about that, the more it would be true, right?
Yeah.
It was completely wrong. That kind of thinking was completely wrong. I was completely off my rocker, and I had to get my beliefs out of the way. Completely drop them. I just dropped them. I said, okay, I'm dropping everything, all of my beliefs, everything that I think. Just show me the truth. I want the truth. I don't care what it is. I'm getting everything out of the way. This is an empty basket. Now fill it with the truth. What is the truth? And that's a completely different scenario, and that's when reality starts to kick in.
Right.
But it's a better life, because now, guess what? I'm more in charge of my life than I was before.
Exactly. And Lynn, you and I talk about that a lot also, about, becoming a blank slate, allowing, maybe getting rid of all the old junk, old belief systems, and just being, receptive to the correct information.
Right. Well, and quite frankly, in my practice, in my holistic lifestyle practice, my sickest people are my light workers, the ones who are love and light.
Wow.
And that got me to really looking into it and saying, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And it, like what I picked up with what you were saying, Serena, they were holding on so tightly to I'm love and light, nothing can touch me, but everything was affecting them.
Right.
And they were then just blaming it on physical. And they had to have the right organic food and the right water, and they had to do this and they had to do that, and they were just a pain in the neck. My clinic was about cleansing and detoxification, cleaning yourself up, but it's all about moderation. But they were just, because they were so taken over by these dark forces and the blinds pulled over their eyes, they thought they were already the love and light. They just needed to get this physical vehicle cooperating. And
right. Yeah, I guess that's the extreme of the light that I had never really understood, but I'm starting to see now that you're so far into the light that you don't even see when the dark is working.
Right.
And what are you here for? Right. You're here to address that. If you carry that much love, if you carry that much light, then you are to be out there with the swords ablazing.
You got it.
And blazing. Yeah.
And instead they're being taken out, and that's my biggest sorrow. When you talk about frustration, last year I was just screaming from the rooftops and being knocked upside the head by these light workers.
Yes, I know.
And it was like, okay, well, at some point, that's the other thing God is showing me. They gotta fish or cut bait. You gotta separate the wheat from the chaff. Don't waste time. There's not enough time to waste time.
No, we're right. as you and I have talked about, if we want to use those biblical terms, right at the times of tribulation. This is all like coming, right in front of us. It's playing out like a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the thing, and that's the one thing that's holding true. That prophecy through those end time scenarios in the Bible is the only thing that's coming true as prophesied. I find that amazing.
That is amazing.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
As many modern day prophets as we've had who said, "Oh, we're all going to the fifth dimension. We're going to be this. We're going to be that." None of that's occurred.
Nope.
But we're heading right barreling down the train track, as it's being called. Biblically, I just find that fascinating.
What do we do to prepare for that? Other than, of course, the obvious. Do you find yourself preparing yourself, with food, or stuff like that, or what besides the spiritual obvious stuff that you're doing? Again, I go back to personal responsibility. Right.
If God chooses for me to remain through all of this, I need to do the best that I can do to support myself and to help others. So, I have some food stored, I have water stored, I have escape plans, because if it looks too dicey, I don't perceive myself to be a foot soldier in that way, Ari and I've talked about this a lot. I don't have a license to carry. I'm afraid I'd shoot my foot off. It's not a judgment. It's just they scare me. I'm afraid I'd shoot somebody accidentally or myself. Doesn't mean that I won't take my beloved's gun and defend my home. If I feel like that's what I'm being called to do, I don't know. Who knows? Unless you're in that.
Exactly. Unless you're in that situation.
I mean, years ago, my dad bought me a .410 shotgun. He couldn't wait to take me hunting, and I couldn't wait to go with him. And my mother had the rule not until she's 16, and he bought me a shotgun, and we went hunting, and we were hunting for some kind of bird. And I was walking down a trail, and this little bunny rabbit went across in front of me, and I just stopped, and it turned around and looked at me, and I said, "Oh, Dad, look, a bunny rabbit." And he goes, "Well, shoot it." And I'm like, and I couldn't,
Right.
So that vision always comes up in my mind when I think about me having a gun too.
Yeah.
Well, thank God.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the point would be, that, and it's just I guess it's my opinion. Maybe you agree or not. I don't know. But we're here in physicality for a reason. And if we know that certain things are happening that point to possible hardship, right? I mean, the longer we're in physicality, I think the longer we can hold that light quotient here on the planet. So if we are all taken out, then it's over. Game over. There's no more players. Yeah. So we've got, in my opinion, I think we need, it is responsible on our behalf here to do everything possible to take care of our bodies, because it is the vessel that's holding that soul, that's anchoring that light. And whatever that means, meaning being healthier by eating the right foods, by having the right thoughts, by, having provisions in case things happen. It's always a wise thing to do. And it's not because you're a doomsdayer or because you're a negative. It's because we're reading the signs. we're awake, So, I get a lot of, resistance, and from people that I guess they're thinking, well, it's not about the body. If the body goes and, we're back home. Okay, yeah, I get that. But if all of us think this way, well, we might as well just pack it up now, because there's not going to be anybody left here to play, to finish the what we came to do. So.
Well, yeah, and again, that's a cop out. I mean,
and it's also a cop out. Yeah.
It's. I think that we have to do what we can to be able to exist in this world and be of service.
Yeah, and I don't think people go back home just because they pass over.
Oh no, that's true too.
No, I think they get stuck in the other fourth dimensional archontic matrix too. I don't think you just go back home, especially if you haven't worked on getting your soul, in connection with the highest order.
I agree.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of minutes left, Lynn. If people want to get in touch with you, they have questions, if they want to find out more about the type of work that you're going to be doing now, opening up Tula and all that, how do people get in touch with you and all that good stuff?
Well, the best way right now, my websites are under construction.
Okay.
But they can send me an email and express, their questions or their interest or whatever, and they can send that to Linn, Linn, at Tula, Tulla, esotericwisdom.com.
Awesome.
And I'll just get back to them via email then. I think my website should be up hopefully by September 1st. And then at that point, I hope to be posting online classes, and probably will be getting a physical space here locally as well to set up a quote church unquote that people can come to and connect with each other in the physical. So
okay, and what's the name of the website? Do you have that already?
It'll be Tula Esoteric Wisdom, but it's under construction.
Okay, that's fine. But soon it'll be up, so they can attempt it every so often to see if it's up, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. Very good, very good. Well, we've come to the end of our program. Of course, you've been hearing Shattering the Matrix. My name is Ari Kopel, and my co-host has been Serena. You've been listening to Rev Dr. J. Linn Strouse, who is also a member of our website, 2012emergence.com. I do urge any of you who are listening to this show to become a member. It's absolutely free, and you will be getting a lot of information in there that will help you also shatter the matrix, expand your awareness, and provide information that you can also share with others. That, of course, the whole purpose behind that is to awaken others as well. We are on air every Saturday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please let your friends and everyone that you know that might be interested in receive this type of information in a positive manner listen to these shows, because there's a lot of stuff that is not being addressed right now, and it's very important to be able to shed light on everything so that we can get a clear understanding as to what's going on with the planet and how we can become sovereign. Again, Ari Kopel and Serena, Shattering the Matrix. See you next week.
You've been listening to Shattering the Matrix with your host, Ari Kopel and Serena. Please visit our website, 2012emergence.com. That's 2012emergence.com. Find us on Twitter at Matrix Shattered, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Shattering the Matrix. Listen to archived shows at blogtalkradio.com/Shattering the Matrix. And join us next time for the birth of the new golden era on Shattering the Matrix.